Holy flippity flip flop flap and smokes, everyone. I know it has been a couple of weeks since I've made a video. I'm out here on the beach today watching the sunrise with this beautiful view. And the reason why I haven't made a video in a couple of weeks is, to be honest, I've been a bit disheartened by everything that's been going on in the banking system right now, with the central banks, with the commercial banks, with the politicians, and ultimately what that's going to mean for the economy. I'm also wanting to see what is really going to happen, because things were changing so quickly. I'd make a video on a bank going under, and then the information would be irrelevant after about 12 hours. So things were happening so quickly. I just wanted to wait for things to cool down, for the dust to settle, to see what was really going to happen. Okay. Now we all saw what happened, and again, the government is lying to you by saying, don't worry guys, we didn't bail anyone out. The taxpayers are not going to have to pay for this. It's not a bailout. You know? And I think the government just thinks everybody is really, really stupid, and also financially illiterate, because it was a bailout. And it wasn't just a bailout, it was actually the biggest bailout in the banking history, okay? Now, we saw a few other banks that got in trouble since my last video. We saw Credit Suisse, they collapsed, they got brought out by UBS. And the funny thing was, they said, look, we'll buy them, but only the government guarantees we won't face any losses. So, again, people, a lot of people talk about fascism today. Well, this is what you call fascism. The government, you know, working hand in hand with corporations. This is real fascism, everyone. And this is not capitalism. This is socialism for the elites, for the mega rich, okay? If you try to create a business, mum and pops try to start a business, if they go under, is there going to be a government to come give them a handout to guarantee their losses? No, there's not going to be, okay? So what we're seeing right now is, you know, they're all saying, capitalise the profits, socialise the losses. We're seeing this happen right now. The government, the Swiss government, put billions and billions of dollars to guarantee there wouldn't be any losses. But that's what happened in Europe. We also saw Deutsche Bank was in trouble. But again, the government's come out and say, don't worry, we'll give them as much money as they need. We'll give them unlimited amounts of money. And the reason why they had to act so quick, like the Federal Reserve and these governments, which is quite funny, because at the start of this, Janet Yellen was saying, don't worry, we won't bail anyone out, we won't give anybody any money. And then within about 24 hours, she's flipped on that pretty quick, because they had to bail out these small banks. And also what they did with SVB Bank, Silicon Valley Bank, they didn't just, you know, help out the little guy that had $100,000 or $1,000 there with the FDIC. They guaranteed all deposits. And guess what? There's a fair few billionaires that had deposits with SVB. And let's just say, I'm sure they had some pretty good donations to the Democrat Party. Maybe that's why they got bailed out. So again, they're trying to say, we're trying to help the average day American, you know, the little guy. No, this wasn't a bailout for the average American little guy. That's what we got, FDIC insurance. Even though the FDIC is broke, and I think if the whole US banking system went under, they wouldn't have enough money, because they only have about enough to cover 1.5% of all US deposits. But again, they bailed everybody out so quick, because if they didn't contain it right now, the whole, I'm not exaggerating, the whole US banking system was just days away of collapse. And something else this is leading me to talk about is the financial crises are getting so close together. You know, there used to be once every 7 to 10 years there'll be some kind of financial crisis. Well, now since 2008, they're getting closer and closer together, because every single economic system markets had been centrally controlled instead of a free market has always failed. Every single fiat currency ever created has always failed. The only currency that stood the test of time is gold and silver. Okay? So they had a good rally today. We see what's happening with commodities, with oil surging, with OPEC announcing a shutdown. Now this is going to throw huge headwinds for these central banks, because what happened to the Fed fighting inflation? You know, just a month ago, they were saying, look, we might have to go 50 basis point hikes because inflation's getting out of control. Well, then within next week, they're saying, oh, actually, no, inflation's under control. We might even be able to pause soon. I think rates are at their peak. This is what Jerome Powell was saying. It was a complete joke, people. Inflation is now going to get worse. And again, going back to them by saying this is not a bailout when it is, the US Treasury is going to have to backstop all these losses at the Fed. And another thing that was absolutely crazy, what the Fed did, is these banks, not only did they get access to the Fed liquidity pool, but what was happening was customers were pulling their money. So the banks had to sell their assets to give people their money. But the problem was a lot of their assets on their books, they lost huge amounts of value. So the Federal Reserve said, don't worry, just sell your assets to us and we'll pay whatever you paid for it. Don't worry, what, you lost 50% on that bond? Don't worry, we'll pay you 100 cents on the dollar. Which is absolutely crazy. Again, if I make an investment and I lose 90% of my money, can I go to a central bank and ask them to buy the asset what I paid for? No. Again, another thing, just socialism for the super rich. This is absolute insanity. What is going on right now? What's really annoyed me is nobody bat an eye. Where's the uproar? Where's the people in Congress talking about this, debating this, saying, should we do this? But no, nobody's batting an eye. Everyone just knows, because a lot of these politicians are either from the banking system or brought out by the banking system. So what happened with the Federal Reserve when we saw their balance sheet? It went up by about $300 billion in just the first week. So again, like they tried to tell us in 2019 when they had to bail out the repo market, that was another financial crisis that people didn't know about or people have forgotten about. They tried to say it's not QE. Look, if they're expanding their balance sheet, it is QE. It's quantitative easing. So my point of this video, what I want people to really understand is the whole financial system right now is a house of cards. It's all been exposed. Everybody sees now how weak the fractional reserve banking system is. The banks don't have to have any reserves. They can take on as much risk as they want. And if anything goes bad, they can just run to Papa Pow and ask for a bailout. This is an unfair, it's an unlevel playing field we're playing on, everyone. Trying to compete against these mega corporations, these zombie corporations that should go out of business, okay? And what's also very unfortunate, we're about to enter into one of the worst recessions we've faced of our lifetime, okay? And all that money that should have been used to make the economy more productive, to go to healthcare, better education, better infrastructure, that's just all been evaporated to the banks. It doesn't produce anything, okay? It's just gone. So their balance sheet looks a bit better. The hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of your money that should have gone to make the economy more productive, more efficient, and also to help people that are going to be severely impacted by this next recession was just sucked up by the banking system within minutes, which again was just crazy. Now we need to talk about what's going to happen going forward, okay? A lot of people think, okay, look, they bailed out the banks, markets are going to the moon, because we all know the markets love free money. The markets don't run on fundamentals anymore. As long as the central banks are printing, okay, the markets are happy. As long as they can get credit quick, the markets are happy. But what I really think this is, what not many people think about, this is checkmate for the central banks. Because they've now had to go to QE infinity to bail out Infinity. Is nobody really thinking about that? They announced QE Infinity in 2022, and now they're talking about insuring the whole US banking system, $18 trillion worth of deposits. Imagine if they had to backstop $18 trillion worth of deposits and print that. What's it going to lead to? Right now, what we're seeing with commodities soaring and what nobody thinks about, asset inflation, asset prices are now going to go up. In the short term, I don't know if this rally is going to be sustained long term, but short term they're going to go up because of all the stimulus, all the money going into the system. That means inflation's going to get higher again. Look at the price of oil; it's absolutely surged. I was filling up my car with petrol. It was $1.70 per litre. This is in Australia, and it's now gone up to, over 20% to over $2.07 a litre. So it's going to be more inflationary pressures. So what this means is the central banks, they can't serve two masters. They can't serve the banking system and bail out the banking system and bail out the markets while trying to serve the inflation beast. We're going to have to pick a side, and they're trying to tell us now that inflation's over. Well, have they been right the past 2 years with this transitory inflation? No. And again, with the bailouts, we're going to pay for this through higher inflation, through devaluation of your dollar. The dollar is going to lose its purchasing power. Yes, why it may not go down because all other fiat currencies are going down at a faster pace. You are going to lose your purchasing power. You're going to pay for this through higher inflation. We're also seeing right now in the markets, in the economy, huge layoffs being announced. McDonald's, Amazon's announcing more layoffs. Google, the job openings data, there's less job openings. We're going to face a painful recession, everyone. It's not over yet. And all that money that should have been used to get us out of this recession has now gone to the banks. They've sucked up everything. They're going to wait for everything to crash, and then they're going to buy everything with pennies on the dollar, rinse and repeat. If they have faced any losses on those investments, they'll just cry to the central bank for a bailout. But again, this is not over. We have to see what's going to happen with inflation. I'm just trying to run away from the water here. It's coming up pretty quick. We have to see what's going to happen with inflation. And I think the central banks are going to be pooping their pants when they see inflation surge again. And what are the central banks going to do then when inflation surges again? If they lift interest rates, the whole banking system, the whole house of cards is going to collapse. They're going to have to make a choice, everyone. So it is not over. Get ready. Be prepared, because I think this is the calm before the storm. But what do you think, everybody? Let me know down below. Good to see you again. I'll see you all in the next video.